Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the next episode of From the Ground Up, a podcast and a show about autism, faith, and family. I'm Scott Gaulden. I'm one of the hosts, and I'm joined by my co-host, Megan Halpert. Megan, welcome back. How are you tonight?
I'm good, Scott. How you doing?
I am doing great. I don't know what it's like in your house the weekend after the Super Bowl, but I am going through football withdrawals right now. Do you guys have that issue?
We do a little bit, but we are very sidetracked with basketball. We are in the Hoosier State, Hoosier hysteria. So both the boys are playing basketball. My husband is a big Purdue basketball fan, and they're actually doing well this year. They're going very much like the Cowboys. They tend to choke around tournament time.
Okay.
So I'm fully anticipating that this year. But we kind of make it a smooth sailing from football into basketball. But
well,
yes.
if you have to settle for a second sport, I guess basketball is okay. It's just not the first sport, right? It's not
Exactly.
So I was going to say I spent this weekend just trying to figure out what to do. There was like nothing on TV for me. So maybe I'll try to pick up and watch a little college basketball. I do enjoy that. So.
Yes, watch college over and over the NBA. I think it's more entertaining personally.
Yeah. Well, I know we've got kind of a special program tonight. We have a special guest. We'll get to that in just a minute. But one of the things we wanted to address, again, part of what we try to do is be an encouragement to people who are going through this autism path, right? What encourage people that are, early in the process. What are the things you can do? What are the things that you can think about, and what are the challenges that you might have? And I know that one of the challenges that my wife and I had, and I've seen it posted on a lot of websites, is there's a lot of judgment out there from other parents or other people when your autistic child is acting up in public, which if you take your autistic child into public, it's kind of a constant battle. It's, maybe it'll work out. In a lot of cases, it doesn't. In our case, Colby, our autistic son, he was a runner. And when we would get into a store, he would take off, and it was like we couldn't even grab him fast enough. He would just take off, and he would just start running. He loved that sensation that he got of things just passing him by, right? And we'd be running after him, and doggone it, he's the one person in our family that's fast. None of the rest of us have any speed, but he could tear down an aisle, and we get all sorts of kind of demeaning looks and things like that. And I think every autistic parent has been faced with that, and it's a challenge to try to figure out what do you do, because it can hurt your spirit a little bit. You could find yourself really beaten down by it. And I've been reading a book called Unoffendable. I think I talked to you about this one time,
Yes.
didn't I, Megan?
Yes,
Okay.
You mentioned it.
I'm in the process of rereading it a second time. It had that kind of an impact on me.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going to encourage you as an autistic parent, if you deal with, tough feelings when you feel like you're getting judgment from people, or that people don't understand what you're going through, I think it's a great book. And it helps to explain how Jesus views the world. One of the things that we're doing at our church there at the Hills, we're going through a sermon series about being more like Jesus. We're going to be spending the entire year, this next year, trying to really understand what it means to follow Jesus. And if we are going to be more like Jesus, we've got to recognize that we've got to have a little bit greater faith. I mean, there is one point where Jesus turns over tables. And that's the kind of Jesus that in my past I really wanted to be. I wanted to be
Table flipping Jesus.
Yeah, that's it. I'm coming at you, okay? On a side note, I saw something when we were on a recent vacation. It said, I want to be more like Jesus, and I want to choke people. It was just like, I want to do both. Is that possible? But this book really outlines a lot of, how to view the world through Jesus' eyes, and how to come to expect it. If you think about it, Jesus is hanging on a cross. He's been beaten. He's been mocked. He's about to take on the sin of the world. And he looks on those people that are doing that with compassion and says, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. They just don't know. And part of the book Unoffendable has you start to really understand that you're going to come across a lot of people that just, they don't know. They don't. And
Mhm.
I mean, even family members that say things that you may find offensive, they don't know. They just don't have anything to compare it to. And there was one line in this book that I wanted to read that I thought was really great. It says, "Christians do not condone unbiblical living; we redeem it." And that's just one of the many truth bombs that I came across in this book about, we're not here to bring judgment. We're not here to condemn. We're here to love people, and we are here to share with them a redemption story. And so if you're one of those mom and dad or dads that is having that challenge, you're not alone. You're like just about everybody else. You're on the same path that everyone else is. And B, go out and get this book. If you read just one Christian book this year, this is the book that you need to have at the top of your list. So I just encourage you to do that. And hopefully that'll help. It's not going to change the other person, but it may change you a little bit and how you respond to it. That's the only thing we can.
And that's all we can, exactly. We can only change our perspective, right?
Yeah.
That's, and how we view things. Scott, do you know, is that on audiobook? I know a lot of our parents may have a limited opportunity to read, or
Yes.
if they're like me, as soon as they read 3 pages, they're ready to go to sleep. But I do better at listening to in the
On
car.
audio. It is on audiobook because I have several friends that have listened to the book that way. And but I will warn you, there's a lot you want to be able to underline in this. So even if you're one of those listeners, it may be one worth reading because you'll want to go back and go, hey, he just says a lot of good stuff. Guy's name's Brant Hansen,
Okay.
and who actually, according to the bio that I read, is autistic.
Oh.
So, I don't know, to the extent
Wow.
he's actually a radio host and a Christian commenter, but apparently has had an autism diagnosis at one point in his life. So I'll just throw that in there for extra. So
Interesting.
yeah.
And disclaimer, we get no financial kickback on anybody that purchases this book, right?
Not at all. No. But we do have a guest tonight, right,
Yes,
Megan? You want to
yes.
introduce our guest?
Yes, I'm so excited to bring on my dear friend, Crystal Turner. She is an occupational therapist. Crystal and I have known each other for going on 10 years, actually. And she has introduced me to a ton of different resources and different people. And it doesn't matter. Crystal and I can go 6 or 8 months and not talk. And then we text or we vox. We're big voxers. Or call, and we just pick up where we left off. So we love to pick each other's brains from different perspectives. So I'm so excited for her to be joining us tonight.
Welcome, Crystal.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here. Like, super excited. I love y'all's podcast. I'm going to bring more people with me. I'm going to do this everyone. I'm going to make it mandatory.
Let me make this point, and Megan, I think you could probably make it better, but for those who are listening and they're new to autism, maybe you've recently got a diagnosis or you're early in the process, you're going to be introduced to all sorts of different professionals with all sorts of initials after their names, okay? One of the challenges is people just almost assume that if you get a referral, hey, you need to go to this occupational therapist, that that you should do, and you would know what the benefit of it is. Or you would know to go to a speech therapist and how they would benefit you. And for a lot of people that are, in those first steps of the path, A, it's overwhelming, and B, you just don't know what that person can do for you. And so in a lot of cases, you don't know what questions to ask, or in some cases, you might even postpone going because you think maybe you put them in a box over here and really they're in the perfect box for your child, but you just had this idea of what they did. So maybe we start off, Crystal, and you give us an idea of exactly what does an occupational therapist do? Because I don't think you guys are named right. Because when I first heard the term occupational therapist, I thought, what can you do to help me with my work? That's my initial thought, and it has nothing to do with that, right?
It's so funny you say that, because that is there's probably one person on the planet that knows what we do just by the title.
Yes.
And it's really funny because people always think we help people injured on the job or to find a job. and mostly not true. We don't do that. But let me tell you what we do and why it is named that, because it will kind of make sense. So basically, and I'm going to speak more for pediatric occupational therapists.
Yes.
And I'll compare it to speech and physical therapy because most people have a general kind of understanding. And so, speech works on the speech things and PT works on the PT things. And OT, basically, I like to say that we work on the job of living. And so it's just everyday basic skills that you need to live your life and whatever occupation you are in life. So if you are a child, can you function as a child? And later, OTC adults too, but if you're an adult and you have to go to work, or you love to play golf and you want to go back into that, we can help you with that too. But for pediatrics, really we focus on helping them to function as independently as possible in their environment. So if you're not in school yet, then it could be just at home or around, other peers, or in the school setting, it could be functioning at school and then functioning at home. And by that, I mean, it could be everything from your sleep routine, how you play, how you interact with your friends, how you interact with the teacher, your parents, how you transition, how you feed yourself at mealtime. Toileting is always the big hot topic. Okay. And but really the ultimate goal is to help the child be as successful as possible so that they can function in their environment and be a kid.
I love that definition, Crystal. Thank you. That is mic drop right there. I think that's easy for everybody to understand.
Better name for what we do.
Well, and I think with occupational therapy, just like with speech therapists or BCBAs, any type of intervention or therapy that a child's getting, you have professionals that have different perspectives of how to approach that, right? So I know a lot of occupational therapists take more of a sensory approach to different aspects of a child's life. I know, Crystal, you and I have talked lots, and you're more of a behavioral approach type occupational therapist. Could you talk a little bit about maybe those different perspectives? And so that way, when parents are going and kind of looking to see what's a better fit for my child, they'll have an idea of, if this occupational therapist is more of a sensory type approach person or a behavioral approach person.
Right. So it's changed in the last few years, because when you and I started working together, was that, you said, almost 10 years ago?
Yeah, I know. We do not look like we're that old, right?
Did you guys start at 13? Oh my gosh.
We did.
Yeah, you guys were so far ahead of your time. I'm telling you.
But even 10 years ago, it was very different. And so I think a lot more OTs are getting a lot more education on both sides of the picture. But I do think that now it's a very fluid thing, because sensory does lead into some behaviors. But so, you kind of have to figure out, is it sensory or behavior? That's always the golden question. But really, I'm looking more at function. And if your function is impaired by sensory, like maybe you have a horrible aversion to t-shirts with tags on them, you can only wear a certain kind of t-shirt. Well, okay, just get to the t-shirt you like and move on with your life, but I'm not going to spend time.
That's what I did at 50. Okay. So that's.
Did you find your t-shirt? Yeah.
I found it, and then I've got a whole closet full of that one color and that one brand. And
gray or black.
Yeah, that's right. Both colors. That's all it needs.
And you're functioning just fine. So it's great.
Yeah. Well, some say.
Still in question.
Yeah.
Well, you're masking it really well then, because you look
okay.
but yeah, that is kind of the difference, because I feel like if we're just focusing on sensory, we might be really missing a lot of the behavior piece of things, and what might, how to shape some of that behavior. And some of it is sensory, but maybe some of it is a learned behavior. Now, everything I know about all of that I learned from you. And so, yeah. But I would say generally now a lot of OTs have kind of a both approach. Now, you would know if not, because they're going to work just on sensory. If it's just sensory all the time, the whole session, it's great. It's not going to hurt anything. But when they get home, can you feed yourself? Can you toilet? Can you transition? And that, to me, that's the ultimate goal,
Awesome.
Let me ask this, Crystal. So I'm an autistic parent. Somebody has recommended that I go to an occupational therapist.
Right. Hmm.
I've got no idea what I can expect. What would be the maybe some of the things that as an occupational therapist you could specifically do for a child with autism? What would be those things that the parent can go, oh, that's what you can fix. That's a problem. I really want to get that fixed.
Yes, so great question. So ultimately, our main focus usually is on the activities of daily living. Okay, and then
Okay.
but that's like the foundation, the base. This, because otherwise you can build like OTs are really known for fine motor skills, and we
Hmm.
do a lot of fine motor. But again, that's kind of a skill set that you work on in conjunction, but it's not going to be your main goal.
Right.
So the main goals, I feel like, and for this population of kids on the spectrum, it is going to be the main focus, and really how the OT would help is they're going to do a really, really in-depth evaluation. And I'm going to refer mostly right now to outpatient in a clinic, and
Hmm.
they'll do a really in-depth evaluation. They always look at fine motor, visual motor, because sometimes a lot of times that goes with it, it is delayed, and sometimes that can be causing a frustration if the child can't hold a spoon or do something they want to do. So we'll look at that, and then also their daily functioning in everyday task at home. So we'll spend a lot of time asking the parent, can they feed themselves, can they, an age appropriate, so those things. And then also typically there's some kind of sensory profile evaluation. There's a few different standardized tests that we can use, and that really pinpoints what might specifically be bothering them for sensory. Like maybe it's a visual, something really bothers them, fluorescent lights, or maybe
Hmm.
it's a noise, and we can kind of help figure out what those stressors might be and help modify that, like the t-shirt thing. And so those are the things that we'll be looking at in the evaluation, and then we can tailor the therapy to. I typically start with the biggest, kind of issues first, right?
Hmm.
And but globally, always, I mean almost always, they would be helping with the self-care and some sensory, looking at things from a sensory perspective, and some fine motor also.
I think the term we want to use is potty training. Is
Potty
that
training.
something that you can help my child with, Crystal?
I mean, let me tell you, Megan and I probably have spent way more time than we ever wanted to in bathrooms with small children potty training.
Yes. Yeah.
So, yes, definitely, because the three big things that kids do every day is they're going to eat, they're going to sleep, and they're hopefully going to go to the bathroom.
Bathroom.
And so
Yes.
those are probably the three number one things that we would focus on first,
Okay.
and really work on that.
When I hear or when I'm on boards or discussion groups with autism parents, that's like the overwhelming thing. It's how do I get this kid potty trained? I think I want to just say, maybe you start with an OT that can help. And those are things that you think you've got to
Mm-hmm.
carry the burden all yourself, and in a lot of cases, you've got these people here that can help you do these things.
Right, right. Because really, for an OT, it's going to sound funny, but I mean, we analyze a lot of each step of that toileting task. And so it could even be, and all toilets are different. That's a bummer. If they were all
Yeah.
exactly the same, it would be so much easier.
Yes.
But, we can see it from a perspective of, I'm thinking of a lot of kids that you and I used to work with, and when, like, they don't like the sound of the toilet flushing in a clinic because it's the ceilings are taller, it's louder. Maybe they don't like the sensation of the cold toilet seat. We're thinking about it from a sensory point of view from that. Or maybe the whole cleaning situation is different too. And it can just be, it can be kind of a scary experience. But we're looking at it from more of all these different steps along the way, and not just sensory, but even the fine motor. Like, can you even pull down your own pants? Can you even get the toilet paper? Can you follow a schedule to wash your hands afterwards? Is that part stressful for you? So we're looking at it from a lot of different angles, and we can offer strategies and ways to either overcome or manage those things that are holding them back.
Well, let me encourage parents. I took out a roll of duct tape and put it on Colby to the commode, but that just didn't seem to work real well. At least my wife really got upset about it. So for those parents that are looking for a better solution, maybe talk to an occupational therapist about that.
Yeah,
So,
we don't use duct tape. Never.
really?
Never done it. No.
Okay.
Not yet.
It worked for a while, I'll tell you that, but
Until your wife came home.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
She got really upset. I'm not sure why.
Well, Crystal, I know you have taught me so much about the visual perceptual aspect of working with kids and things. And I think just opening eyes to that, we look at things from a behavioral standpoint, or at least I do, but being able to see, well, can they even do that? One of the things that I know a lot of kids struggle with that occupational therapy can also address our executive functioning skills. And, we talk about time management, we talk about different, and that really, you start to see that gap, I guess, a lot more when kids get into school, right? And managing their day and their time and staying organized at school and that sort of thing. So I really want to talk a little bit about that too, because we have a lot of kids on the spectrum that, may be able to take care of their own basic needs at home. But when they get to school and that managing of those two pieces, it just kind of falls apart, especially those higher ability kids, I won't say higher ability, but are what used to be classified as Asperger's syndrome kids, right? Those kids really struggle with the executive functioning piece. Could you talk a little bit about how OT can help with that area too?
Sure. Yes, you're so right, because sometimes kids that have a lot of intervention when they're younger and then they're hitting school age, especially that, like 5th, 6th grade, middle school, where you really have to, the teacher's not really there all the time and you're really more responsible for doing things. And academically, they're just so advanced, but you can't keep track of anything in the classroom or follow directions. And so oftentimes from the outside, the staff of the school might look at that as they're, like they're being lazy, or they don't want to, or they know and they're choosing not to do that, when really, no, they don't. So executive functioning is kind of a broad term for 6 or 7 different components. Like you said, time management, meaning like, can you guesstimate? This is actually a really big issue for a lot of kids, is students especially. Can you guesstimate how long something is going to take? Because if your teacher hands you a worksheet and it has 10 problems on it, in your brain, do you think it's going to take 10 minutes or 10 hours? Because some kids, especially if it's a lot of effort, not so much cognitively, academically, they know the math, but the effort is getting it on the paper. And they're using so much cognitive workload to just form the numbers and get it on the paper, that to them, everybody else like, oh, I finished that 5 minutes, but they see it and they're like, oh, that's going to take forever. And then we have meltdown before we even start. So time management can be one. There's flexible thinking is another big issue of, everything is not black and white and concrete all the time, how to manage that when things change. And then also a lot of, like emotional regulation to how you can, and even like social skills of how I think a lot of times they're really not aware how other people perceive them, so things like that can really be a big challenge, because it's almost invisible. You don't see that part. Yeah.
Well, those are the things that we never teach kids, right? We expect them to already know how to do this. We expect a 5th grader to go from having one classroom and all their books in one place to now have a locker and find all the things and go to the next class within like 4 minutes.
Right. No. And that's another subset of skills, is working memory, being able to hold, I don't know, they say the average person, an adult, can hold 5 to 7 things in their mind at a time, which I'm like, wow, that's generous. I can do like maybe 4. But for kids, even to hold 3 things in their mind at one time, it's like, okay, I'm going to get up, I'm going to go to my locker, I'm going to get that book, and I'm going to walk to this classroom. Well, that's 3 things you have to remember and hang on to all at the same time. And you got to walk in a busy hallway that's smelly and there's kids running into you. And it's just like, yeah. So working memory can be a real challenge.
Wow.
Yeah. That's
one of the things I remember with Colby, because we had him working with an occupational therapist, and again, this is because I didn't really understand, but there were a lot of times where he had challenges with muscle memory, fine motor skills, things like that. And being, having to rely on my wife to be the genius in the relationship. I would ask, what are they doing in occupational therapy? And she's telling me, I'm like, well, aren't we more concerned about him developing speech? That I just want my child to talk. That's the big
Yeah.
thing, right?
Yeah.
And, she had to explain to me that the occupational therapist is working with him to develop some of these skills with his body that are really necessary. Those are connections in the brain that are really necessary in order for speech to be able to take place. And maybe you could talk to that a little bit, because I know there's probably some other parents out there that are just like, I just want to focus on speech. But the reality is you got to focus on all these other things in order for speech to take place.
Right. That is very true. And it's funny because think about it from the opposite perspective. Think about if he had speech right off the bat, but he could not hold a pencil, he can't hold a spoon, he can't zip up his pants. Now that's major problems too. I think it's just, so it is really important to get all of those things. And then, the fine motor is one piece, but the whole sensory motor and gross motor piece is a whole different set of things. Because if you can hold your spoon and do all the fine motor things, but you really don't have an idea of where you are in space, you might be too close to people when you're talking, or you might bump into somebody and you don't know, that you're that close to them. And even just everyday simple things might be really challenging, like climbing up into a truck that's high, because you don't know how to climb. You have never climbed and got your feet off the ground. You're not coordinated.
That was our issue with Colby. We had to teach him how to climb. We literally had to take his hands, and then the occupational therapist would work with him, and then we would go to the park, and 2 or 3 times a week we would work with him to show him how to climb so that he could understand that motor planning piece. Now he has no problem with it, but there was a time where that was a struggle for him. Until that part of the brain starts to make connections, he's going to struggle with that and all the other things that are like next to that in the brain, right? So.
Right. To integrate all of that together really does. It's almost like when it becomes automatic, if your motor patterns are really automatic, like you and none of us really think about how we're holding the fork or climbing up into a truck or anything like that. You just don't even think about it. And so if you can help them integrate all those things, then that's one less thing that they're challenged with. And now we have more, cognitive workload to work on other things.
If I was a parent and really wanting to make sure that the occupational therapist I chose was a good fit, what are some things that I want to look for? And Megan, maybe you could address this as well. Is what are the things I'm looking for to make sure that this occupation, because not every occupational therapist is going to be a good fit for your kid, right? So let's be real. Let's make sure that what does that look like?
Well, and if I can add to that, Crystal, one of the questions I always heard from parents that recently received their diagnosis is, obviously wanting to know what occupational therapy is, but they would say, well, I take my child and they don't work on anything the whole session. And I think being a professional, I know that there are certain things they're probably targeting to build up that skill set. So I think, what would a session look like? What's going to make it a good fit? And what do I know? What would be some first things I would see during that session with my child and the occupational therapist?
Ooh, the first session. So if you're basing it only on the first session, it's probably not going to look like you're doing much. Because the first session for me, I'll speak for me, is always about building trust. We don't accomplish, I'll just be really honest, we don't accomplish a whole lot in the first session, because if you don't have trust and you can't build some type of bridge in whatever they like to do, I kind of let them lead it. And I might push them a little bit, but the whole first session is just, can you tolerate me? I'm your friend. I'm fun. That kind of thing, and really building that trust. And then after that, if the parent were to see, after that, here's my strategy is I I always use the child interest, right? Whatever it is. We used to work with a boy that loved giraffes, anything giraffes. So anything we do, whether it's potty training, handwriting, eating, anything, it had to always, there was a giraffe somewhere involved, right? But I let them lead. But then I'm going to push them about maybe 10% more than they're really comfortable with. We're going to just nudge them a little bit. Megan's really good at this. We're going to nudge them a little bit and then, and then back off and nudge a little bit. So if you were looking at the first maybe 1 or 2 sessions, you probably wouldn't see a lot because you still have to really get that trust. But after that, that you should see that they're, and sometimes they don't, the parent's not always in the room, and sometimes they can see through a mirror or something, but a lot of times, having the parents in the room, it changes the whole dynamic. But generally, I also, here's what I look for in a clinic is, or the OT is for it being a good fit is if they're really listening to the parent and asking what the parent is looking like, not so much what they're looking for, but asking questions like, what's the biggest issue right now at home? Not in the clinic, not at school, but because that's being addressed. But what is the biggest issue for you that affects your family every day at home? And then that way they can really focus on that first. I think if they should be really communicating with you a lot maybe at the end of the session. And honestly, there's not a whole lot of time for that, but just a few minutes at the end of the session is something I look for. And just if honestly, most kids after the first few sessions, because we're new, but we have a lot of fun stuff, and so a lot of toys. And so after the first few sessions, you'll kind of know because your child, maybe the transition there is not great, but once they're there, like they generally really like it. And so if they're, 3 or 4 sessions and they're just miserable coming out, that might be a red flag because most kiddos are, they're kind of upset when they have to leave.
Yeah.
That's a good sign. If they're upset when you have to leave.
When they don't want to leave.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, Crystal, I know you have started a new role. I know you shared this with me. And just to give everybody a little bit of background, occupational therapists, just like BCBAs and speech therapists, are very hard to come by. And so Crystal has started a new role that is allowing her to kind of help expand with an organization that's able to reach out to families that are in more rural areas that maybe can't find a provider or find an occupational therapist within their area, but they can still help get those needs of their child met. So Crystal, do you mind talking a little bit more about that? I'm so excited to get this out there and share this. I think it's an amazing resource for families.
Oh my gosh, I'm super excited about it. It's also, I'll explain it in a minute, but it's also great too for like maybe that people that have a long wait list, or maybe they can't get to an outpatient clinic, or there's so many reasons. But so here's what I do now. So I have been for several years now doing a parent coaching on, coaching parents at home from an OT perspective, all the things we've been talking about. And so I now do that through a platform called Kinspire. And I'm so excited about it because it is a very different model. It is not telehealth. I don't see, there I am. It is not telehealth. I don't see the child. What we do is through an app, and I'm in Texas now, but I'm getting licensed in a lot of other states, and there's several other OTs on this platform. But basically, we do a really comprehensive evaluation, and we do the sensory thing online. They fill it out, and we score it. But what's really cool is the other part of the evaluation, they're doing it from home in their own environment, and they're taking short videos of like, okay, let me see this. And so it's really unique because in outpatient and even school-based, you cannot simulate at home what it's like, to do things. So we do a really comprehensive evaluation. And then after that, it's so cool because we kind of score and come up with everything, and we ask the parent, what is the 2 biggest issues that are affecting every day? And they'll tell me whatever it is. And then on this app, I go in and there's a big giant, like huge library of things, and I can really customize things on the app. I'll put in some articles or some education for the parent because I often get asked why is this happening? So it can help them really understand the why behind the behavior and the why, that is happening. But then also I will load it with different activities and strategies that they can try. So if this is happening, like if you're, if we're really afraid of the toilet flushing, let's try these 2 things and then let me know how it goes. But we do everything through the app. So it's so much more effective and streamlined because I'll give a couple strategies and the next day they try it and we'll message each other on the app after we've had a couple Zoom meetings by this point. So now we're messaging back and forth on the app every day. And they'll say, oh yeah, we tried this, it didn't work, but we tried this one, worked great. And I go, okay, good, let's build off of that. And so it's a lot more efficient, I feel like. And the parent really has, they're with the parent the most. So they can have a lot of impact in that area. And the other thing I'm learning that I really love about it is that it's really great too for families that are long distance or maybe parents are separated. Both parents can get the same education and strategies and coaching on the app. They don't have to talk. You can share it with a teacher, you can share it with a coach, you can anyone that you want that's in that child's life. So it's a very cohesive approach to addressing everyday self-care issues, not just self-care, but everyday issues in the home in real time. It's very cool. It's very cool.
This is something we talked about 10 years ago and somebody just beat us to the punch in making it, right?
I was like, hey, we should totally do that. So cool. Well, it turns out I'm not an app developer, so it didn't work out. But this is great. If I could build one to do everything that you and I talked about that we want to do, this is totally it. It's amazing.
Do you see, or I'm just assuming based on being able to have that immediate feedback and conversation with parent, if they're in an outpatient where they're going to clinic once or twice a week, parents try it and then it's a week later, obviously trying to remember how it worked and things is not as immediate, right? You've slept since then and all of the things.
Never happens.
But with this, there's that immediate feedback between the parent and the professional providing that. So I'm assuming the progress for these kids is a lot more efficient and a lot quicker as well with this approach.
Yes, it totally is. It is much more efficient, I think, for addressing those things. Now, some things you really need to go to a clinic for, but you can even do both. This could be, it's a subscription model, so it's less than copays would be for outpatient, very, very affordable. And you could even do both. But you're right, in the outpatient clinic, even if you're going twice a week, or even if you're doing something else online, it's usually a face-to-face Zoom meeting. It's usually twice a week. And that parent doesn't remember what happened that morning. They're dealing with a lot of stuff. They don't remember that the strategy you coached them on last Thursday. They're like, what is today? I don't even know what we talked about last week. So yes, I find it has a lot more, it impacts the whole family a lot quicker. I even had some twin boys and one brother is I'm seeing and the other twin is not, but I was coaching the twin brother. I'm like, hey, you should read this book about this to your brother. And it's just really fun. It's really, really fun to see that progress.
Wow. And where would we go to find that app? For anybody that's interested in that, what are we looking at
So
there?
the website is kinspirehealth.com. It is not, I learned this the hard way. It's not on a desktop. It's only an app. I kept trying to open it on my desktop. But it is, yes, kinspirehealth.com. And I believe somewhere in the notes, there's going to be my referral link. Now you don't have to come to me, but it's not just, I can't even remember all the states it's in now because it's really taken off pretty quickly because it is very efficient. And we get a lot of feedback from parents who just say, oh my gosh, yes, this is like, it's just so much easier because I can do this in my everyday life and carpool. I can just text you really quick and all of that. So yes, it's kinspirehealth.com. My referral link is there. And even if you're not in my state, then I'm helping to do all the initial consults and I can match people with therapists. That'd be a really good fit for the family.
What I love about this, Crystal, it's a concern of mine is, if you're a parent in an upper income suburb in Dallas-Fort Worth, you've got lots of things to choose from when it comes to helping your child. Right. If you are not in that strata, the opportunities drop off very, very quickly. And
Yeah.
for people that are living in more rural environments or have limited financial resources,
Right.
this would be just a great fit for them, I would think, for those that are trying to seek this out. So I'm my mouth's open to just amazed by this and who this might be able to help. So,
Yes, yes.
yeah.
They're going to be adding in speech pretty soon too. So it's a really great service. That's why I'm passionate about it because I really, I've worked in every environment. I've done outpatient, home health, school, worked with Megan, and I just the progress is just a lot more efficient, and it's just so fun to see. I know Megan and I have worked together with a lot of families, and it's really fun to see that progress, and not just with the child, but for the family, like that piece for the family.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's great. What going forward, what are some things that you're working on right now? What are some things that you're wanting to see happen for you?
Ooh, okay. Well, lots of stuff. I actually am helping them at Kinspire. I'm going to help build out their program for older kiddos because, by the time you get to 10, 12, 14, even if you're an outpatient, the resources are a lot less. And so
Yes.
I'm going to help with that piece and a lot of executive functioning because by that point, that is typically what is really challenging, right?
There's a
So I'm going to
huge
help.
drop off at that
Hmm.
point in what's
Hmm.
available to your
Huge.
child.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And
We forget that these kids continue I've got a 21-year-old son, and we forget there's a lot of things he still needs to learn. Just because he turned 21 doesn't mean his needs went away. So
right.
yeah, but
Don't they
it,
say that the brain, I want to say the executive, was it executive function or something? I don't
it's
know,
like
but
27, 28 years old before it really
I,
fully develops.
I think it's like 24, 25 years, but somewhere in there. It's way
It was a little
after.
later for me. It was like 35. Okay.
Still working on it.
Still working to get there. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm excited about that piece because there's a big gap in services for that group. And what's out there tends to be really expensive, So
Yes.
I'm really excited about that. And I have three teenage boys, so I am living it every day. We are doing lots of executive functioning over here. And so I will send you the bill later, but right
Okay.
now, yeah.
Well, this is great
Oh,
stuff. I want to make sure that
yes.
people know to look this up and to take a look at that. And Crystal, if somebody just wanted to contact you direct, how would they get a hold of you? What's the best way to reach you?
So my email, I have an email and it's cturnerconsulting2020@gmail.com.
Megan, how about you? What are things you're working on? What do you want people to know? Next
I
steps.
I am actually working on a potty training course, believe it or not. I'm
Ooh.
hoping to get that out later this year. Obviously, free time and children are impeding those things, but that's okay. But a potty training course where parents can subscribe and log in, follow the steps and that training to help with the where do I start? What are the things I need? What approaches should I take? I meet with a group of girls on Thursdays because my son's in ninja class and they all have kids that are potty training age. And so I know it's a big thing for kids with autism, but it's a big thing for parents across the board. So I've got that in the works. And yeah, so that's my priority right now. But also I'm always happy and willing to help parents who may have just recently received a diagnosis, help them start to navigate those first steps. You can check out my website at halpertconsulting.com. And I've got some resources I've started rolling out. I've got a medical binder that we've put together, and also have some other materials that I'm developing for families to have free access to as well. So
I would strongly suggest if you're a listener and you know somebody that's new to this, maybe you're a grandmother or a friend that's just kind of stumbling across this and feels like, hey, this would be something for this person. Please forward a link to this show and let them know this, and let them know that they probably want to contact Megan to just help them on those first steps, because it can be a little bit daunting in those first couple of years. And then I'd just like to mention too, if you're in the Fort Worth, Tarrant County area and you're looking for a church home, I'd like to invite you to the Hills Church. We've got 3 campuses, one in Keller that I'm a member of, one in North Richland Hills, and the other in West Fort Worth. And, church can be a hard place when you have special needs kids. Sometimes it's not an easy place to bring your family. And we want to let you know that we're a church that's dedicated to making a comfortable place for families with special needs to come to worship. We have special programs that you can feel that are just designed for your special needs kids. And then, you can drop them off and pick them up at the end of the service. We also have a respite night at each one of our campuses so that once a month you can sign up and bring the child and all the siblings. And you and your spouse can go have dinner and have a real conversation. It's really amazing what something like that will do for a relationship on a regular basis. And so if you're looking for a church home, I'd just like to reach out and just invite you to that and let you know that we're here to help you in any way. And the final thing too is if there's anything that we can do as far as prayer is concerned, let us know about that as well. Please feel free to contact us, autismfaithfamily@gmail.com. Happy to answer any questions or give you any encouragement we possibly could. So I think that's about it.
Check it out.
Yeah,
Yes.
Crystal, we'd love to have you. We think we've got
Yes.
a great place, and especially if you've got some teenage boys that would like to be a part of our respite night, to volunteer
They
for
volunteer.
that. So they
As
volunteer.
long as you feed them, they'll do anything. Just feed
We
them.
do. We feed them ahead of time, and then these kids get a chance to work with the special needs kids or with the others. They get a real sense of accomplishment, and we believe that you're built to serve other people, and we want to teach that from an early age. And I personally think that that's a great way to grow a child's faith is, for if nothing else, teach them to serve somebody else besides themselves.
Yeah.
I like
The
that.
Crystal, the goal. I'm guilty of volunteering at respite nights, and the parents always think they have the best time, but in reality, it's us volunteers.
Yeah.
But all of the siblings and the kids, we try to pair up 1-to-1. So every child has their own individual person that they get that one-on-one attention. And we got a bounce house in there. We've done face painting. We do blacklight party. It's super, super fun. So
That
yes.
sounds like a blast. That sounds so fun.
If there's anything we can do to help your family in that way, please let us know. We'd be happy to help you. And with that, I guess we'll close our show and ask you to join us next time. Please, if you don't mind, like and share and comment on our program. And if there's any questions, we'd love to hear from you. And then we'll see you next week.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us, Crystal. You shared so much information. I know
super
our
fun.
parents are going to be so thankful for.
Oh, so fun. We could just chat forever. That'd be fun.
All right.
All right.
Well, good night, everybody. We'll see you later.
Bye.